we've talked a lot the last few weeks, last few episodes about what we're doing with the phone. And I want to take a small piece of that and I want to make it actionable for people who maybe aren't leveraging it the same way we are, don't have access to the same tech backend processes. So if assuming they are using the phone or would want to use the phone, I want to talk about different call outcomes / statuses that you have of target prospects. So you've got the booked meetings, and then underneath that, what are all of the other outcomes that have some kind of positive notation tagged to them?
You talking about the phone only?
Yeah. Sorry, and I can actually. So let me. I'm doing a lot of these projects right now, so I'll tell you more specifically what I'm talking about. So you've got booked meetings, you've got activated leads. And I'm going to let you dig into these because I don't. These.
You've got completions, you've got connections.
Well, but you actually have, at least in the way that we're documenting it, you've got leads that are marked for nurture, you've got leads that refer you, and you've got leads that are not me, not now, not the right person kind of thing. Yeah. So talk through each of those designations, probably the ones that are less common sense. Like not
I'll go
me,
top
not
to
now.
bottom, and then I'll explain each.
Great.
Dials, total dials.
Yep.
Connections, how many of those dials did you connect with the actual individual that you intended to get a hold of? Completions, which is how many of the people that answered did you essentially bucket into one of those categories? You got through your messaging, you got through your script, and you bucket them into no, not interested, no, not right now, not me, referred to someone else, yes, interested but not ready for a call type of thing, or yes, I'm ready for a call, right? And then, so that's completions. The next layer down is activations. So activations are folks who are kind of that, yes, interested, yes, in the market, yes, it's a problem. Not me, but this is the person who makes the decision, referred to, hey, you should talk to John. But it's not a booked call. Think about like an MQL, right? Yeah. It's kind of like in between an MQL and an SQL. But a marketing qualified lead, if you will. It's no different than an opt-in, through an ad or whatever, in my opinion. And then you have booked, which is people that we got on the calendar. So dials are dials. Connections, you always want to monitor your connection rate, right? How many people do I actually get on the phone, right? Because if you're calling on the same list and that connection rate is drastically dropped, right? So again, same list, but drastically dropped. It likely means that you've probably burned a number or burned the numbers that you've been using. And so you need to fix that problem. Completions are how well are we getting to the right person with the messaging and getting them into a bucket that we talked about. Mm-hmm. And so oftentimes some might call that like a soft pitch or whatever, right? It's not a first time appointment, but we're getting to the heart of their problems and we're talking about our solution in some way, shape, or form and moving them towards activation or booked. Activated, we treat them like an MQL. And so those are just as important to me as booked calls. It used to be more about the booked call game, but now I'm realizing some of the best opportunities require nurturing. And so the MQL will be people who we need to nurture. Right, so those are folks who they displayed some level of interest. They displayed some level of they related to the problem that we talked about, and we could do some substantial follow up with them on different channels, even right. Like maybe the phone just wasn't the best place to convert them, but it is their problem, and they're not ready to convert, and so therefore let's try email with them next, or social, and so on, or we just call them back. And then booked is obviously booked, and so you want to optimize for all of those if possible. The better your messaging gets, the better the activation rate gets, the better the book calls gets, and so on. And so it really comes down to messaging on how to
And you put your account executive in charge of following up on activated leads?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of case by case, right? But I would say predominantly 80% of those activated should go to an account executive to follow up on. Right, it would be no different than. I was gonna say it'd be no different than somebody who filled out a high value guide that you had on your website, and they opted into that. It's like, should an SDR reach out to that person, or should the person who's far more likely to get the conversion on the back end of that because they can talk the talk and walk the walk reach out to that person? I personally think that it's a better use of time and money if the account executive does that.
Yeah, you just mentioned stepping away from just looking at booked calls and really digging into activated accounts. And I think it really, as you and I have sat down and talked about it, as I've watched you work through the numbers, it changes the math of the phone game. Like if you're just looking at ROI in terms of book calls and then kind of leveraging that math to figure out what sort of revenue that's generating in terms of won deals, it's not just about booked calls, though, from that initial cold call outreach. It's about what all is this effort going to generate downline, and a lot of it's going to come from those activated leads.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I think just focusing on going back to the politics question, I think that just focusing on booked calls is low IQ sales that I have fallen prey to before, right? I think it's lazy sales. I think I'm only looking for the 3% or small percentage of my market that's ready to have that conversation today. Instead of, and Ryan he stole this from someone and he gives them the credit, but I don't know who that person is. I don't know their name. But he talks about the fat stacks are in the circle backs. And so it really comes down to like the follow-up game is where a lot of the gold is. And so, and the reason it's important is because everyone's fighting for the buying market, right? Those who are willing to vet something now and have that call now, like people might be doing that through Google, their own research, through ads, through social, through other people, cold outreaching to them. But the persuadable market, people are not working nearly as hard to get to that market. And the MQLs or the activated is that persuadable market. And so if we can get opportunities from that portion of the market that's not ready right this second, or how we said it wasn't the right way or whatever, but the problem's there and we can solve it, then we are opening up ourselves up to a market that's relatively untapped compared to what everyone else is working with. Everyone else is working off of intent data, which is I raise my hand because of activities I've been doing to solve this problem, whereas we're creating a whole different channel of intent when we activate someone.
What I love about
you can go to Zoom Info.
Good.
I was gonna say you can go to Zoom Info or Apollo, and you can like filter by intent signals, right? That will not capture our activated type of intent, and so you're literally creating your own stream of intent leads by activating accounts that are probably not being reached.
Yeah, and there's no other way to get into them. Right? We talked about this earlier. The email is not going to get you there. You're not going to get the feedback that you need to know who's actually persuadable into that section.
Because they're not forced to respond.
So if you're listening, so what's the next steps? I mean, they're pretty simple, right? It's like start marking these other call dispositions and then build out a plan to follow up with not just people you book with, but people that you activate, and you need to have a designation for 100%. That.
Whoa! Who knew I would make it this far? They hated, they never believe me. Yeah, I would never drop the ball. I know I make it look easy. Yeah, maybe.